Welcome to It's All About the Questions, where learning to ask the right questions can help you achieve lifelong success. Now, here to help you ask all the right questions is award-winning author, international speaker, and business strategist, Laura Steward.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone, and welcome to the show. And if anybody's wondering why I said good morning, afternoon, and evening, is because I have a very international audience. And that means I don't know what time zone you're in when you're listening to this or watching this, or whether you're live with us or not on all the social media platforms. So therefore, I want you to feel welcome, no matter where you're from, no matter where you're listening. I just love the fact that you're here and that you're listening to the show. And boy, do I have an amazing show for you today. I am so excited because I've got somebody today who, in the words of my friend Kendra Lee, said, everybody is going to be salivating by the end of this interview. And not just because he's an award-winning chef who taught me so much when I eat at his restaurant before my ear stuff all happened, but we're figuring out how I can get back there now. But he's taught me so much about flavor and about presentation, but more than that, how you can do it at home as well. I learned that shrimp and grits, when I first moved to Florida, are really exceptional because I always hated them before. Lamb took on new meaning, duck took on new meaning. But once I got to know Stuart and his lovely wife, Nancy, I realized that there is so much more to owning a restaurant. It's a business, but it's more than that. It's about creating family. And that's something that my guest today, chef and business owner Stuart Borton, does better than so many people I've ever met in my entire life. So please join me in welcoming my guest today, the amazing, incredible Chef Stuart Borton. Welcome to the show, Stuart.
Hi, Laura. How you doing?
Good. I bet it's hard to hear that intro, right?
Yeah, you're embarrassing me with all those nice things you said about me. Thank you.
It's so great to have you on the show with the restart of it after everything that's happened. And when you said yes, I was so excited because I miss seeing you and walking into your restaurant, and it immediately feels like family. And that's something that is hard to maintain. And yet you've done that for, I think it's 28 years now in just this restaurant. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Been doing this since I was 21, though. I bought my first restaurant in Adelaide, Australia.
Yeah. Okay, so you grew up on I think it's a 500-acre farm in Michigan. Then you went into the Army. How did you end up at 21 becoming a chef and a restaurateur?
Well, I really couldn't call myself a chef back then. I was just bought the restaurant because the Australian government changed their dining out expenses to not allow tax deductions anymore for dining out expenses. And I was selling life insurance for the Australian Mutual Providence Society. And I would entertain. We would go out, entertain customers. And, I did really well, but they stopped doing the tax deductions. So I just bought but there was an exception in the rules. If you owned a restaurant, you could still use it as a dining out expense. So I paid $15,000 and bought a restaurant. So like a no-brainer to me. It's like I just bought a share in a restaurant so I could write it off. Turned out I just loved it. I had so much fun doing it. And it was like a few years later, I'm not even in the insurance industry anymore. And I'm just a restaurateur, and I'm just having fun with it and just having fun with life. Not making as much money as I did selling insurance, but I did okay since. But it took a lot of years of struggling to hone my craft and to understand the restaurant business as well as I do now. And I'm just still learning every day. And every time the rules change, the laws change, the taxes change, there's other things you got to deal with.
I listen to that and I go, all right, he made it sound so simple that he just decided to buy this restaurant. It was a no-brainer. But to the average person, pivoting the way you did back then, number one, you're now living in Australia, you're selling insurance, and then you decide to pivot to a restaurant and saying it's a no-brainer. I mean, what were you asking yourself or saying to yourself at that point in time, this young 21-year-old?
Well, at 21, I didn't really know the things I didn't even know. It was that old saying. I just did it because as a knee jerk reaction, because I was dining out a lot. I was writing off maybe $40,000, $50,000 a year of my income at the time. And all of a sudden, I wasn't going to be able to write that off anymore. So I'm like, okay, I'll buy a restaurant since a restaurateur can still write it off. Had no idea I'd love the business. My ex-wife she was going to run it with our partners. And she was in college at the time, so she didn't run it very often and didn't really like it. But I loved it. I would go there and I would entertain guests there, um, take clients there and meet them to sell them insurance to, and ended up doing some crazy fun stuff in the restaurant. And just I fell in love with the industry. It was like it got
Okay, so what do you mean by crazy fun stuff at the restaurant?
well in Michigan. There's something called smelt. It's a little white fish. It runs up the river. In Australia, they have white bait. So I would do stir fried white bait, and it was like okay, it kind of is like smelt, and it was cheap. It was white bait, but it was fresh. So you could stir fry it, and I could sell like a big old plate of it for well, I don't know what it was, 5, 10, $15 back then. We made good money on it, so it's just fun. And they didn't even Australia doesn't have a lot of hamburgers on the menu, so we did stuff like that. And then after I sold that restaurant, it was a little different. That restaurant did really well, by the way, because we opened up unbeknownst to me at the time, because I was really focused on work, next to the first casino in Australia that was opening.
Oh boy.
And it was right next door in the original Parliament House for South Australia, and called the Palm Garden, I think they called it. But it's just this beautiful old building. And it was just it's a little 500, maybe 600 square foot place. Just a really small restaurant. But we made it work, and we had fun, and you know, the rest is history. It's kind of got bitten by the bug.
And then you came back to the States?
Well, a couple restaurants later, I'm back in America, and back to this the early '90s. I was back in America visiting, and I met my new wife, Nancy.
Right. Who I've met, who's
Yep,
wonderful.
in Old Town, and she was
Oh,
like,
really?
"Yep." And we was kind of smitten with each other right off the bat, and so we ended up getting back together. I went back to Australia, and then I'm like, "Ooh, these are expensive phone calls. I'm going back to America." So I just left the restaurant because me and my ex-wife had separated at the time. She was actually living in Japan, so I left her the restaurant and came back to America. Several years later, she sold the restaurant and sent me my share of it, so that was nice of her.
Nice.
I had to argue with her a little bit about my share, what my share was. She
Right.
didn't understand half. She's like, "Oh no, but I ran it all these years." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, still, I own half of it." So,
It's never an easy conversation with partners or exes in any of those kind of
Yeah.
conversations.
but in the end, it all worked out, and I'm loving my new restaurant now for 28 years, Yellow Dog Cafe, and it's right on the river in Malabar. It's just such a fun place to be.
Which you've expanded and transitioned it and changed it so much over the years. What is like the biggest difference between, and it's a lot of years since, but owning a restaurant in Australia versus America? Are there any big differences, or is it just internationally restauranting is the same? It's the same experience, it's the same issues.
It's the same thought process where you really have to be somebody who loves hospitality at its core. You've got to have a hospitality heart. I say, you want to make people happy. So that's the big thing. The difference is there and then here from my experience, 30 years ago in Australia, was how you received your food. Over here, we have all these big semi trucks delivering it. Over there, I had a small restaurant, so and all my restaurants there were small. Well, I should say all, both. So we would go to the commissary and buy food, this big wholesale house and just load up on food and bring it back.
Okay.
So the difference, and milk was delivered by the milkman in bottles at your back door. So that was a major difference. That actually stopped about the time I got into the restaurant business. They finally stopped delivering milk, and they may still deliver it now. But at our restaurant, when I built that one, they had stopped delivering right about the time.
So it sounds like back when you ran the restaurants in Australia, and I'm sure some parts of the world it's still like this. And we're trying to revert to that in the United States, farm to table situations versus here where we have big distributors that work with other farms and other places and they buy up all their stuff and then you pick on a list and they just deliver it by truck.
And in Australia, I would go, if I wanted produce, we would go to the market and get produce. And they had this big Rundle Street market, and it was just full of vendors. And some people had apples, some people had oranges, some people had meats. And it was just this giant market. And we did so much of our shopping in those markets. And then they started opening grocery stores, bigger grocery stores next to the market. But it's not the same. It was never the same. I wish they had giant garden farmers markets like that here, but they just don't. I'm sure in some cities they do, but
Well, I know you have one across the street in your urban farm. I know it doesn't look really great, everybody, but I was up there yesterday and Stuart gave me this lettuce and he told me stick it in some water and it'll keep it fresher. And I was going to eat it yesterday, but I said, no, I need to save it for the show.
I should have gave you a different one. That one's bolted.
And what does bolted mean?
It just grew past its life. It's when it gets too hot, it kind of bolts. It grows really quickly.
Okay.
And if you catch it right when it bolts, which we did on that one, because I tasted a leaf before I gave it to you, it doesn't
Right.
turn bitter. If it does turn bitter, then it's basically you got to find a use for bitter lettuce or feed it to the turtles. We have gopher turtles in our neighborhood, and
Me too.
my sales manager takes all of our lettuce scraps and that and feeds his gopher turtles. He bought a lot next to his house.
Okay.
It's full of gopher turtles. That's why he bought it, because he didn't want somebody moving his gopher turtles away.
Oh, that's sweet. That's really sweet.
It was sweet.
So you've created your own urban farm though, as a
Yeah.
result of it. Has that changed anything for you in terms of how you think and prep? Because I to me, not being a restaurant person, but I go to the market every couple of days and I'll buy my produce, even though it's not fresh, because there's, like as you said, no major farmers markets. Occasionally once a week you may have somebody, but I swear they don't grow the stuff themselves.
Yeah, and a lot of times that's the case. They'll go to the big market over in Tampa and buy the stuff and come back and sell it.
Yeah.
That's
So
usually
that
what happens.
changes things. So how does it make you think as a chef and a restaurant owner now that you have access to different vegetables literally across the street in your
Well,
urban garden?
Laura, I don't know if I told you this or not, but we've been doing this for like 20 years.
The urban garden?
Yeah. I've just
Okay, so you've
never,
only just
I've,
started talking about it.
yeah, because it really was never a big deal to me. It's like, okay, I've been a farmer my whole life, and we had like 80 vertigrow pots, and they have these vertigrow pots in Disney, and I seen them in Disney one time, and I'm like, and then this guy Val Steele bought a bunch of them. Old friend of mine, he's passed away since, but he bought a bunch of them, and I was working with him when he was trying to get that going, and then he suddenly closed down his thing, and I was able to get like 40 or 50 towers from him. So I put them in my backyard back in early 2000s, and in the warehouse where they are now, and it's gone through a lot of changes. I've got like 20 of those left, and for about 5 years we had like 40 or 50 of them, and then I took them down and put a walk-in cooler where I had a bunch of them, because we did a fish market over here in the warehouse. Actually, out of this room I'm in right now used to be a fish market for a while.
Oh, wow. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was. We rented it to some friends of ours, from Sebastian. Actually, they live in Roseland still, but Yeah, and then over the last like 4 or 5 years, it's gotten really popular, this farm to table stuff, and we just did it because it was handy to be able to come across here and get basil. And that's mostly what we grew was basil because, and some tomatoes. Uh, and then I found a lady that would grow tomatoes for me, so I stopped growing tomato and just focused on basil. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, I met a lady named Leela Dunn at the Orange County Convention Center, and she was farming these hydroponic towers. And I'm like, Leela, if you ever want to do one in Melbourne, let's talk. And about a year ago, I'm like, I need to reach out to her again. And it was perfect timing because she's like, yeah, I'm ready to expand. So she come, we started talking. I said, okay, we made an initial plan. We bought a bunch of towers. And now we have close to 100 of a tower called Tower Garden. And they're all aquaponic or hydroponic.
And that's where this came from,
That's
correct?
where that came from. Yep. And we'd grow some inside the warehouse, and then we grow a lot outside the warehouse as well. So we're still in that first year that still losing lots of money, but we're hopeful that it's going to work. And I think it will work. I'm still positive about it. Uh, but we have right now more basil than we can use, so we're actually going to be reaching out to some local restaurants that are already buying from us. And then I met a guy that owns a few pizza shops. I think he could probably take all the basil we have left, so that might be an easy option for us.
Nice. And maybe you can make some jarred pesto sauce that those of us can buy and
Yeah,
use
well,
at home.
possibly, but that's a whole nother business. I think I've got enough on my plate right now. I start canning stuff. We
Okay,
do.
let's talk about that. How many things you have on your plate? Because everything you've talked about so far is pivot after pivot after pivot after pivot. And it sounds like to you, it's just that's the way I think. I see something and I go for it. But a lot of my listeners, Stuart, the thought of making a pivot is impossible for them. They either don't see an opportunity or they don't see, let's call it a lull or about to be a down about to happen. So they're just like, no, no, it's fine. Everything's going well right at this moment. And that's all that matters. How do you, what do you say to somebody who's in a business to help them see that you need to, and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, that you need to pivot before things plateau or go down? You need to see this other picture.
Was sometimes hyper focusing on one thing is a really good thing, but at some stage, it's like, okay, this is not working. It's not. You're not growing. You're not doing something. So if you're not growing, you're dying, and that's my feeling. And even if it's a little bit of growth every year, so that's something I always watch. Being innovative with new technology, integrating that into your business, whether it be AI or just knowing your numbers. Some program that there's programs out there you can buy now that you can put your recipes in and tell you how much exactly that recipe costs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's an intense amount of work. Matter of fact, we had a class right here with my team that's putting the recipes in, and that's responsible for doing the recipes, whether it be bartenders or general managers or chefs. We had a bunch of those here yesterday in the same room, listening to this new company that we're using and about how to put the recipes in and integrate with what we're doing. We want to try to integrate with back office to try to get the edge on things like the big companies do. I mean, you take a look at like Olive Garden or one of the big chain companies. They've been doing this stuff for years. They know their numbers. They know everything that's going on, and they even have a chance to look in the future by making projections. Like we've had POS systems for years where we can look last year exactly what we sold on Father's Day, for instance. So we can
Okay.
plan for Father's Day this year. In the past, we would just go back and we maybe had it written down in a book someplace, and you'd flip back through the last year. But some restaurateurs don't even do that. They don't even have any way to track what their year-over-year sales are. And those ones, those are the ones that typically will struggle a lot.
It's really interesting because when I coach my business clients, one of the biggest things is to make sure they always understand their numbers and then compare what's working and what's not working. I never thought of in the restaurant, because I always thought alcohol was the biggest moneymaker, but you're saying every recipe, understanding how much the cost is of making it, it's fascinating because you have some of the best cocktails ever that you guys do. And your social media pages just make you want to salivate, even just the cocktails, how amazing they look. So it's every little piece in the restaurant business, right down to that piece of broccoli, how much that
Yeah.
costs you.
Yeah, or the lavender syrup in the cocktail. If we
Okay.
do lavender syrup, we're buying lavender, and that's a recipe to make the lavender syrup. And then how much of that recipe do we use in a cocktail? That details it out like that, and it helps us understand where our margins are. And we want to be fair to ourselves, but we want to be fair to the customers as well.
Right.
So we know we have a high cost going in because we're using premium ingredients. We're making all of our stuff, so our labor's more than most other places. So our food cost needs to be a little more, and that's one of the reasons we have to charge what we do charge, because it's just so expensive. And even people don't realize, but farm to table means a lot of times more expensive. You think it's cheaper growing your own stuff, but when you're hiring a farmer to run your small farm, even if it's a big farm, the farming's expensive. Farmers don't make a lot of money, not a lot of profit in farming. Hence, our family farm in Michigan sits in the soil bank because it's not really big enough to make money. It's, you know, it's a good for a hobby farm, but it's not a real living for anybody anymore. And my little brother lives on the farm. He's got some horses and stuff, and he does a little bit of hobby farming, but most of the land sits in the soil bank because it's just not, there's not enough money to make a good living out of farming.
And that's got to be similar for a restaurant. If you only have one restaurant, or somebody in business has one location and is only got a handful of customers, how do you then manage to expand? You have so many seats that you can fill. You can't just say, oh, I've got more customers coming in than I can handle, so I'll expand. You can't just
can't do
easily
that.
expand.
Yeah, and if you have one location and you're full all the time, you're probably doing okay. If your rent's right, your food's good, your cost is right, but you've got to understand your profit margin. It can't just say, okay, my egg cost or my steak cost, $1, so I can sell it for $3. That just doesn't work anymore. That used to be 1/3 food, 1/3 labor, 1/3 profit, or 1/3 expenses, and then that's really what it is. It was, but now they have this new thing that it's been around for a while now called prime cost, and it's food and labor, and that's what your people on the line and in the restaurant can really control. And that prime cost with food and labor, and that's when we try to keep around 60%, because
Okay.
that number for us, if we keep that prime cost of food and labor at 60%, we might get 4 or 5%, even 6 or 7% if we're lucky, profit at the end of the year, because that last 40% has to pay everything else: workers' comp, liability insurance, which some years it's over $100,000 a year.
Wow, that's
Just for
expensive.
liability insurance, yeah.
That's on par with tech companies, that their liability insurance is so high because of ransomware, cybersecurity threats, and
Yeah,
all of that stuff. So
yeah.
that's a lot, 6 to 7% profit. Is that why you've pivoted into other arenas to
Not
help
really.
that?
Some of that was, but back in 2012, I think it was, I decided I'm going to write a book. So I wrote a cookbook. God bless you.
Thank you.
So I wrote a cookbook, Yellow Dog Cafe Cookbook. And I was going to try to find a publisher. And then I met this guy named Enzio Avante, I think Alavante. I'm not sure. I probably killed his last name, but he had a little restaurant up in Merritt Island next to the Home Depot. He doesn't have it anymore. But somebody told me he published his own book. So I'm like, I'm going to go see him. So I went and seen him, and he told me where he got it done. I'm like, well, thank you very much. So I went and I wrote to the lady, uh, and made a couple phone calls, and then I sent her my manuscript. And all of a sudden, I'm getting my book printed in China. So I'm like, okay, wow. So before I did that, I opened up a company called Yellow Dog Printing LLC to do the printing,
Right.
because I didn't want to do it under Yellow Dog, because I figured I said, well, if it works for me, maybe I can do it for other people. So now I've done quite a few books for other people. And I've done 2 more books for myself as well. And we've done a coloring book and just fun stuff. And I have a lady that helps me, and of the last couple years, and she's like edited 3 or 4 different books now, in the last year, and that's a lot for us. It makes her a good living, and I'm happy to be able to do that, and she loves it. Um, yeah, she used to be my general manager at one
Oh,
of my
that's
restaurants.
interesting.
And then she retired, and then she decided, oh, I want to come back to work. And I'm like, well, can you be my assistant? So she does the printing company. She does most of the stuff for the printing company now, and she does a great job. And it's busy. We had the busiest year last year we ever had in the printing business.
And you've got 3 cookbooks, right? In addition to the coloring book,
Yep.
which are on the back wall, and I know you have copies by
Yeah,
you.
I'm waiting for that one to fall off the wall because I taped him up for this.
That was pretty funny yesterday when you were getting everything set up.
Yeah.
But comfort food with a flair, right? Old Dog, New Chefs,
Old Dog New
targeted
Chef.
towards children, and then your original Yellow Dog Cafe cookbook. Which, by the way, everybody, these cookbooks are amazing, absolutely amazing. And Stuart, you're doing something for my listeners as well. If they go to yellowdogcafe.com, they're also going to get if they put in 25, they get a 25% discount with code
Yeah.
Laura, right?
With code Laura. Yep. Just your first name, Laura.
Yeah.
And
So yellowdogcafe.com. Highly recommend them.
good. Well, I hope they like it. I hope people buy them and like them as much as you do, Laura. So thank you for buying my cookbook. I appreciate it.
Yeah, nothing better though than actually going to the Yellow Dog and getting your food.
But it's good though. A lot of the recipes that we have at the restaurant are in the book, and
Right.
people are like, well, I can make this at home, but it's so hard. There's so many steps.
Yeah,
So
but
we have
yet
recipes and other recipes to make a recipe. So it's like some of our sauce, like probably the most famous dish in our book is the onion crusted chicken. And so there's a recipe for the fried onion. We use
Right.
Bermuda onions, and there's a recipe to fry the onions. Then it's caramel citrus glaze, so there's a recipe for that. And then there's actually a recipe for the dish itself. So, but you have to use the onion crusted recipe, or the onion recipe, and the caramel citrus recipe to make the onion crusted chicken. So it's a lot of work, and we do it in bulk, so it's a little easier for us, and we do it all the time. So even when you do something that's hard all the time, it becomes easy. So it works
Okay.
for us.
So for my listeners who all watch The Bear and a bunch of other shows like that, is the kitchen just like you see it in shows like The Bear, if you've ever watched it, where it's insanity in the kitchen, or are your kitchens, I imagine them just being a little calmer?
We're a very calm kitchen. Everybody knows what they have to do. Communication is key. So we try to make sure that when people communicate, they don't just say one thing, but if it's important to be done right, make sure to explain how you want it done right, unless the person knows exactly what they're doing. But we're like any other kitchen. We get new people, so when you explain, say, okay, I want a béarnaise sauce, and there's ways to make béarnaise sauce, but they may not know how to do it. So you explain it to them, or you give them a recipe, and you kind of talk them through the recipe to make sure they understand it completely, and then you let them go try to make it. And then you taste it and you follow up and make sure it's right. So it's communication is what I'm trying to get at. It's so important. You can't just say it. You have to actually make sure they understand it, or you're not really communicating. You might think you're communicating, but if you don't really make sure they understand what you're saying by explaining it well, you're not really communicating. You're just telling somebody something that they don't understand.
Well, that's really critical in any area of life, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But even more so in a restaurant where there are knives in the kitchen, and you've got all these customers that have expectations. But that's pretty much in any business,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And when you're not just communicating, the servers have to communicate well with the guest, because if somebody's allergic to something, we want to make sure that they understand exactly what they're allergic to. We want to make sure that's communicated well with the kitchen, so that we don't hurt somebody or make them sick or do something that's wrong. It's a Communication is a whole different thing though on the internet. You can just blast anybody you want to and say you're really not communicating. You're just shouting out there on the internet.
Right.
That's
So
funny.
when I'm hearing communication being important and I'm thinking about my listeners out there, is there a lesson that helped you learn how important that was?
Yeah, I'm sure there is, because I'm a hardhead. I learn everything by by making mistakes.
Okay.
I can't think of anything right offhand, but I'm sure as soon as the show's over with, I'll say, "Oh, I should have thought about that." But
Is there a lesson you've learned in any area of running this business, whether it's
um,
communication or otherwise, that you want to make sure that the listeners really think about
be kind to
something?
people, because you never know who you're talking to. We've had people who come in to the restaurant and you think they're not anybody special, but all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, he's famous. It's We've had so many famous people in there, and I don't recognize them because I don't watch a lot of TV. I work a lot, but then I was like, oh, that's Eminem, or that's oh, I don't even know the guy that did that, Slim Shady.
Oh, okay, I don't know him.
Yeah, but he's come in the restaurant. John Welsh is a regular in the restaurant. We see him.
Yeah, he's a local Vero
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
really nice. But we've had lots and lots of people. We had Marco Rubio. I sat down next to him having lunch one time, which was really kind of cool.
Which is now a big
He's-
political hotbed.
Yeah, yeah, he's like the Secretary of State. Whoever thought I would sit next to Marco Rubio and have lunch?
Yeah. Well, he was a local Florida guy. So, you talked about being kind to people because you don't know who they are, but you also don't know what they're going through. And
Yeah,
you have a tendency at your restaurant to see people on their best day.
yep. And sometimes on their worst day, they're having a funeral or something, and you don't.
Okay.
Yeah, and we do a lot of funerals or celebrations of lives, and that's a really hard time for people. And you see people come in with their mom and dad, and they're like, you know, for my mom don't remember much anymore, but this used to be her favorite place, and that's why we're here today.
Oh,
So
that kills me. Okay, tears. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like, and you're like, wow, that's really cool. Or you'll see somebody that was a baby and now they're 18 or 19 years old or 28 years old, which we've been here for a long time. And they come in, I've been coming here since I was a baby. I have a picture of you carrying me around when I was a little kid.
Oh,
I'm like, wow, that's cool. It's like,
hey,
it's amazing.
you get your customer. You know who your customer is. So who is your customer, and how did you figure out that's what your customer is and that you decided to just focus on that customer? Because I don't know, I think you've seen this. You're very involved in your community, chambers of commerces, business organizations around. Figuring out who your customer is and then not wanting to pivot away from your critical customer
Well,
is so
when we,
common.
yeah, we found out a long time ago that, and we first started, and this is a lot of credit goes to Nancy, because she's like, we're going to do a high-end restaurant, because the first one I did was called Stuart's Bistro in here in Florida. And I say I did it. We did it together. And it was just we called it Stuart's Diner. And then we changed the name to Stuart's Bistro because I'm like, I don't like this diner attitude that all my servers have. They say, well, it's just a diner. Why do you expect me to
Oh,
bust the table? So I'm like, oh, I'm going to change the name to Stuart's Bistro so they don't feel that it's a diner, and it's okay not to bust the table, and it's okay not to do all these little extra things that we want to do for people. And so we changed to Stewart's Bistro. I got my first 5-star review from a lady named Sheila Lowenstein, who was a food and wine editor for Bon Appetit Europe, just before she retired. And then she moved to Vero Beach, and she gave me a 5-star review. She had a tremendous following. So all of a sudden, our restaurant got really busy. I was like, wow, this lady must have a lot of friends, because we just got, all of a sudden, this rest review came out in the paper, and all of a sudden we got so busy. And I'm like, okay. So a few months after that, this yellow dog came up, and it was just a teardown of a building, and it was $250,000. So I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. So we put our money together, got credit cards, and we bought it actually on a credit card, and we borrowed $100,000 from a friend of ours
That's
to
commitment.
remodel it. Yeah, and but he was a regular customer of ours at the restaurant, so he knew us and he had faith in us as well. But that gave us our start. So between the credit cards and the $100,000 we borrowed, um, and the landlord, or not the landlord, but the guy who sold it to us on a land contract. So we actually own it, and we bought it outright, because he said, well, you can either buy it or rent it for the same price. And I'm like, well, we'll buy it if you'll finance it or hold the paper. So he held the paper, and we bought it, and the rest is history. We remodeled. We opened with 28 seats. Then it went to 70 seats, and now we're just short of 300 seats. So
Wow, 300 seats now? Is that because of what you did downstairs and out back?
down on the
Okay.
riverfront. Yep.
Yeah.
So down in the riverfront, we don't even use that except for weddings. We did a wedding down there for my nephew, and it was just beautiful. I couldn't believe it was so nice. We just had that hurricane, and it messed up the whole riverfront. So I quickly pressure washed it. It was like literally a few days ahead of it, and everything looked terrible. So I went out and bought a pallet of sand in bags, and we poured it over everything, the play sand, to make it look like it was a big sandy beach instead of full of weeds. So we break the leaves up and poured sand on it. So we had this beautiful, beautiful wedding venue, and bought a bunch of flowers and put down there. So it just turned out to be like this perfect venue for my nephew. And they had a destination wedding, because they live in Boston, so they all came down here for the wedding. There was probably 100 people. So
Wow.
it's a great wedding, but it just looked beautiful. It's like, but we don't really use the riverfront, because I don't know why. I keep saying we should use the riverfront more.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the staff is like, they push back, and it's like, oh, we don't have enough people to sit outside. And I think it's that they don't want to walk the extra 20 yards to get down on the riverfront.
Well, it's the steps, right?
And it's
That they
more
have to
steps.
go
It's
down.
another set of steps. So it'd be 3 stories down.
Right. You
That
need a
is a bit,
dumbwaiter that'll
yeah,
bring the food down to the downstairs, so
yeah.
it makes it easier on them.
We don't have room for that. We don't even have any extra space to hardly walk around. So it is a lot. So and it goes well like it is. But one day I'm sure they're going to say, okay, wow, maybe we will do that. We do want to do a white party down there, though, because it's
That'd be
just,
fun.
so we're going to do a white party sometime this summer. We haven't set a date yet, but my GM wants to do a white party. She's younger, and the age where they want to do things like that. So
Right. Hopefully it won't be the day like it is the day we're doing this show live with 110 heat index.
yeah, exactly. Or maybe fans or something would help.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, absolutely.
maybe we'll do it this fall when it starts to get a little cooler. I don't know. She hasn't picked a date yet, so.
Okay.
And she's on vacation next week, so she won't pick a date until after she comes
All
back
right.
from
That makes a
vacation,
lot
I'm
of
sure.
sense. All right. So you buy this restaurant, you start doing all these things. You go from 28 tables to 300 tables. That's a major expansion. It took a number of years to do that. What would be your advice to somebody considering growing a business?
Well, go slow. You don't have to rush into it. Bite off pieces that you can chew. Don't go crazy and try to go from running because we were growing as well as restaurateurs. We went from I should say, my wife, she was running the Living Seas and working for Disney at the Coral Reef restaurant. So she had lots of experience, but I was still learning how to cook for 28 people when we did that. And because my first restaurant was 28 people. So, and then went to 70 people, and it's just an expansion thing. You have to learn, get a system in place. And we have always had a small kitchen. So trying to do the kitchen and create your menu that works for what you have. And I guess that's how I say, make sure that don't try to overstep or overplay your hand. If you have a small kitchen, then really be concise with what you do. Practice it before you actually put it out there on the menu. Make sure you can do it consistently, every time the same. I know we don't get it right every time, but we really try every time to get it right. So, grow in steps that you can grow. Don't try to, if we would have went to 300 people from 28 people, we probably would have failed, because we still have that same 10-foot hood system that we had in the beginning. We
Okay.
don't really have any place else to put another hood system unless I do a major shutdown and just redo the entire restaurant. So every time we grow, we have to reimagine what our menu is going to be, or relook at what our menu is going to be, and say, okay, can this still work if we're on a busy day? Because you can't run a menu on a busy day that you can't do on a slow day, or a slow day that you can't do on a busy day, because it is what I should said. Because if you have a 50 guests and we have a 3-foot grill, and if we had 6 or 7 different steaks, it would not be possible, because we only have a 36-inch grill. So we have to refine what we do. We usually have maybe 2 steaks on the menu, sometimes 3, but we have to really watch what we do, because you still have to have room on the grill for fish that doesn't touch the meat, and you have to for chicken that doesn't touch the meat, because you have people's vegetarians or that people that eat fish but they don't eat meat, so you don't want the grease from the meat splattering on their fish.
Which changes the taste and
Yeah,
a lot of other things, not to mention the mental aspect of it, if they find that out. I'm just, I'm listening to you, Stuart, and I keep drawing parallels to so many different kinds of businesses. A strong foundation is a message I get throughout everything you've been saying since we started the interview, that you need a strong foundation of what your costs are, who's doing the work, what you can get done, who your customer is, even your branding. Yellow Dog Cafe. By the way, everybody, if you get a chance to go to the Yellow Dog Cafe, make sure you order dessert, because the yellow dog brownie and the little yellow dog cookies are just to die for. But all of that, you talk about foundation. Was that a hit or miss for you, or did it grow with you? Had you and Nancy thought about it from the beginning?
Well, everything we did, you mentioned the cookie, for instance, back in early 2000s, maybe even 1998 or 1999, when we first started, we started this Yellow Dog cookie. Back then, smoked salmon used to come on this piece of plastic, and it was about less than probably a 16th-inch thick. We used to cut them out with X-Acto knives, with a little X-Acto, cut the shape of a dog out, and we could get 3 or 4 dogs on this piece of plastic. So we just did it one day because the dishwasher was bored. He's like, "I can make you a dog." I'm like, because I said it'd be nice to have a logo dog. And he says, "I can make you a dog." So I said, well, "Okay, take this." And so he took a X-Acto knife and he cut the shape of the dog out. And I'm like, "Okay, that's perfect." So I rubbed the Toodle batter over it and baked it on the back of a sheet pan, and it worked. So now we laser cut them, and we can do 20, 25 at a time if we want to. So we laser cut them on a piece of plastic that is the size of the back of a sheet pan, so we get a maximum amount. And we have to, because sometimes we serve 100 desserts in one night.
Wow.
So we have to be able to make a lot of cookies every day, and we try to make them quickly, because we're a scratch kitchen. We make everything from the bread, relishes. We slice our own meats. We cut our own meats. We make the sauces that go on all of our dishes. It's just it's an intense, and, and even now, like it's not too much of a stretch to say, okay, we're going to try to grow more tomatoes ourselves because our tomato grower doesn't like growing them in the summertime. So it's
Now
a
you still need tomatoes, so you
you
need
still
to
need
do that.
tomatoes. So I'm like, gosh, what can we do for
All
tomatoes now?
right. And then you decided to share these recipes with the world in your cookbooks so that they can try to make them at home. Some people are always afraid to give away their secrets. You're not. You've always
It's
been open to sharing everything from how you run your business to how you cook, how you do everything. Why? Why
well,
is that
there's
important?
it's just it makes me feel good being able to teach somebody something. I like teaching. I learned really like teaching when I started teaching and volunteering at St. Joe's School, teaching kids. Oh, that's probably 20 years ago when I did the kids cookbook. I did volunteer taught for a few years at their elective program,
Hmm.
and then when they stopped the program, whether they didn't get enough people wanting to go or whatever the reason was, um, I said, okay, I'm going to write a cookbook about it, about what the kids like. So I try to. I got one of the kids that used to be a kid. Now he's a grown man, and he's an amazing artist. And he did all these little designs in this book here, and
And
lots
say the name of it for those that aren't
of
watching.
comfort food with flair. And then but he did stuff like this,
Oh,
and
everybody, if you're listening to this on audio, you need to go watch the video because these are amazing illustrations.
but it was just a fun thing. And Scotty's mom was our server at the time, in the past, and I grew up knowing him, and I knew he used to always like doodling, and he would write his own little uh, like comic books at the table when we were at Stewart's Bistro, and I'm like, that kid can draw. Now he's like the international sales manager for some national company. I'm not sure what it is.
Wow.
I try
Okay.
to stay out of his business, but and I don't want to put him on the spot, but it's kind of he really did a great job of what he did, and I loved the drawings, and I had a lot of fun doing it, and I just like sharing what I've learned, and I was never a great student, and I learned hands on. I was a better at hands on. I was kind of at a D average when I was in high school. Went to college, a failed college, like you should when you have a D average in high school. So
Right.
I learned a lot in the military. I learned, uh, that I wasn't really stupid. I just was a little hard headed and slow at learning, and I didn't like studying, but I just hadn't found my passion yet. Now I know a lot about cooking, and I'm quite good at it. Probably not as good as my staff are at it because they do it every day now, and I don't get to do it like I used to. But that's one of the things I learned too as you're going on. Try to hire people better than you. I get my managers sometimes will like, well, that's my job. I'm like, no, your job is to manage people and to help them grow. So you want to teach them to do that, your job. You're not going to lose your job because you taught them to do it. That just means that you get to do something different. And that's sometimes a hard thing for a young manager to learn is, you're not trying to, don't try to not teach people what you do, because if you teach somebody else what you can do, then you can actually either help them do it or do a better job at it, or come up with another way to make money and to use your time to benefit the business. And that's an important thing. I think people are afraid to share. Young managers are afraid that if they teach what they have to do to somebody else, that then they're not going to be able to keep their job. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that. You teach people, and they'll do it, and then you can learn something else. Go on and learn something else on your own, or uh, maybe help them do it so it's done faster and better, and come up with different ways. So that's my advice to people: is share your knowledge, because it's important. You have important stuff inside you that you're not going to be able to, somebody else might not be able to do when you're not here anymore to do it.
That's a That's a beautiful way to sort of, oh, there it went. We knew it was going to go, except I thought it was going to be the other one. That's fine. It was the comfort food book. If everybody is just listening on audio,
Yeah.
Stuart had put them up on the
And
wall
that was
behind
gonna be
him.
that was gonna be free now because it's spelled 3 times. It's pretty much destroyed. That is so funny.
Oh, they think that was a perfect ending, sort of, to what we were talking about today.
We're remodeling my office. That's why there's no pictures on the wall because
Because everything falls off.
it's got a fresh paint job and it doesn't have any doors. You can't see it, but I have no doors on my office. So it's kind of like there's doors coming into my office area, but there's no doors on my office. So, but it's funny. It's like, okay, we can do this in my office. It's still where I work.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Stuart, is there any last thing you'd like to share with my listeners?
Well, I have a tendency to, you heard the phrase squirrel.
Mhm.
I can get distracted very easy. So I have to watch for that and watch for yourself to not get distracted from what you're really trying to do. Your main goal has got to keep out there in front of you. Make sure that if you're going to get distracted, make sure it's going to be worth your time, because if you're doing something that's just totally off balance, like opening up a printing company, make sure it's going to help your business in the long term, which had some synergy. It has been a big benefit to Yellow Dog opening a printing company. When we really started focusing hard on the farm this year and I hired a full-time farmer, that has helped a lot. I don't have to go out in the garden and do all that stuff anymore, but I'm still needed there. And I've been doing it for a long time, actually longer than she has been doing it, but she has specialized knowledge with the tower gardens that I don't have. So, I let her run the farm and I take her advice because, I've been farming in a different type of medium all these years and it's not the same. And she does know best. She's proven that to me many times. So listen to your people that understand what they're doing and take their advice and make people feel valued that work for you.
I love that. Make people feel valued. That means yourself as well. Make yourself feel valued, your staff, and your customers.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody.
Yeah, I love that. And don't do like the movie Up, squirrel, where the dogs are running all over at the slightest new input. Focus.
Yeah, stay focused. That's the hardest part for me. My assistant helps me with that. Carol helps me keep focused because I'm constantly got all these different things I want to try, and she's like, "Yeah, okay, let's get this thing done first." So, because she's a taskmaster, so she keeps me on task, keeps me focused, and so it's right now we're trying to develop a kind of an event center in the warehouse. So that's our next task.
And I am really hoping that you try what I suggested or invite me in so I can watch you cook and do some demos of making things, because I know you're missing being a chef because you're not doing that as much as you used to.
Yeah, I don't get to cook on the line anymore because it's too busy. I can't keep up.
Yeah.
It's when I was cooking, it was, we were doing half the business that we're doing now. And these young kids that are cooking and they're coming up through, they're amazing. They're talented. They're aggressive. And they sometimes with that little tiny hood system that we got and 300 seats, I don't know how they do it.
That's amazing.
It's just amazing how they do it. And they do so much with so little space.
Yeah,
but a lot of it's prepping though. They really prep well.
Yeah. Maybe you need to write another book about.
My wife will kill me.
But you have your own publishing house now, so you can. It's a little easier. I think the two of you should write something about that. But I want to thank you so much for being on the show today and for your very generous offer to all of my listeners. If they go to yellowdogcafe.com and enter code Laura, 25% off any of your books that you have up there, the 3 cookbooks. And I think it's wonderful. Everybody needs to get them. Cooking is therapy, at least for me. It's when my mind shuts off.
Exactly. For me too. I love it.
Yeah, because you so have to focus, especially when you've got really sharp knives. And I need to ask you where I can get my knives sharpened because they're a little duller than I'd like them to be right now. But
Wooden Spoon in Vero Beach.
okay, cool. I will go there. Oh, and you can get your books. For those listening that are local, you have your books at Wooden Spoon in Vero Beach as well, right?
Yep.
Autographed copies.
Yeah, they are there. Yeah. How did
Okay.
you know
And
that? Did you see some?
I saw when you were
Online?
going to be there because I follow you on social,
Oh, okay.
but I couldn't get there that day. I had clients.
Yeah. So Wooden Spoon, both in Melbourne or West Melbourne and Vero Beach, carry them. A few
Okay.
other places, but I used to be on Amazon, but I took them off Amazon. I don't know why. I just wasn't selling as many. And I think I made a mistake on Amazon by having them store my books. It
Okay.
ended up costing more money than it was worth. So maybe I'll go back on Amazon, but ship them myself.
Or have the ebooks up there, but most people want cookbooks that they can touch and
Yeah.
hold and
Ebooks,
see.
my first book I made into an ebook, and I don't think I ever got the $600 back that it cost me to put it on there. So
Sure.
I'm
Well,
not sure it's
I want
really,
my cookbook.
yeah, I'm not sure ebooks is really, I didn't do any of the other ones on ebooks because I didn't see the value in it.
Yeah.
But my
That's
first
a lesson.
book back in 2012 made the New York Times bestseller list. That was kind of cool. I was at the Vero Beach bookstore, and they just sold so many of them. They do that reporting thing
Yeah.
that I made the bestseller list for the day for the nonfiction. I guess it's a nonfiction book.
That's awesome.
That was
The
kind
Yellow Dog Cafe cookbook?
of, yeah.
That's awesome.
So that was cool.
Congratulations. That's
Well,
a
thank you.
huge thing.
Yeah, it was a big deal. But I went online to try to look at it and to see when it was. They don't put that on there back that far, so
Okay.
I can't even go back and say, hey, because I didn't do much with the internet back then. Now I do more with it, but yeah. Well, Laura, listen, it's been a lot of fun with you today.
It's been awesome. I love you. You know that. I love Nancy. I love your food. But most of all, I love who you and Nancy are as people in our area and in the world. We need more of that. We need more kindness and we need value. We need people to feel valued. And you do that from everybody that steps through your doors. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
You too. All right, everybody. So I had an amazing guest for you today, Stuart Borton, chef and owner of Yellow Dog Cafe in Malabar, Florida. He shared so many different lessons about life, about business. Post up on social, email me, laura@laurasteward.com, and tell me what you took from this. And when you comment on social, follow Stuart. He's got tens of thousands of followers on his social platforms and shares incredible stories about what's going on with the restaurant and recipes and different things like that. At the end of the day, remember the right questions can change your life. So what are you asking today? Have a great day, everyone.
You've been listening to It's All About the Questions, starring Laura Steward. Connect with Laura at it'sallaboutthequestions.com and download a free workbook that will help you ask better questions starting today.